Thinking about getting a talent agent for your twins? What's the submission process like? How do you find the right agency? And what should you expect when it comes to auditioning for jobs? If you're daydreaming of your twins becoming the next Mary-Kate or Ashley Olsen, or perhaps you're just trying to pay for college, then this is the episode for you. This is Twin Talks.
The ultrasound shows your babies to be healthy.
What? Did you say babies? You're huge. Are you having twins?
Are they natural?
Which one do you like better?
Twins, huh? My neighbor's cousin's brother's uncle's a twin.
So can they read each other's minds?
How do you tell them apart? Twins? You got a 2-for-1.
Do twins run in your family?
Double trouble. You're not having any more, are you?
At least you're not Octomom.
If you're pregnant with twins or you're an experienced twin parent, odds are you've heard it all before. Now it's time to hear from the experts. This is Twin Talks, Parenting Times 2.
Welcome to Twin Talks, broadcasting from the Birth Education Center of San Diego. Twin Talks is your weekly online on-the-go support group for expecting and new parents of twins. I'm Sunny Galt, and I'm sitting in as host for today. Have you heard about the Twin Talks Club? Our members get bonus content after each new show, plus special giveaways and discounts. You can subscribe to our Twin Talks newsletter and learn about the latest episodes available. And another great way for you to stay connected is by downloading our free Twin Talks app. It's available in the Android, iTunes, and Windows Marketplace. So today in the studio, let's basically introduce ourselves so you guys know who's part of the conversation today. I'll start. My name is Sunny, and I'm producing today's show, hosting today's show, but I'm also the owner of New Mommy Media, which produces Twin Talks, Parent Savers, The Boob Group, and Preggy Pals. I have 4 children myself, all age 4 and under. So I have a 4-year-old son, a 2-year-old son, and then identical twin girls, Ainsley and Addison, who are going to be a year next week, actually. As far as my family getting involved, I did it a little bit with my older son. We kind of got involved, did some things. And the moment I found out I was pregnant with twins, I thought, I have to get them involved. This makes sense. They need to get an agent. And we really haven't dabbled too much in that with them yet. So that's why I wanted to do this episode. So
This will be an education for you.
It's going to be a little bit of an education for me, for sure, and for other parents out there. So Allison, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Allison Rogers. I'm 46. I was a graphic artist until I had my twins and I was laid off. And so that's actually one of the reasons why we got into the entertainment business. Everyone was like, oh, they're so cute. You need to put them in movies. I'm just like, I'm from Los Angeles. I'm really not interested in that. And I'm like, actually, I'll give it a try because we had a friend who was an actor. And so that's how we got involved.
Okay.
So my girls are 12. They're identical. And we've been in the business since they were 9 months old.
Wow. Okay, Gabby.
Hi, my name is Gabriella Kent, and I'm 40 years old, and I do work a full-time job. I'm a pharmaceutical rep. I also am a stylist with Stella & Dot, and I also have a third job, which I say is a stage mom because
It is a full-time job.
Yes, it is a full-time job as well. So, and I have 3 children. I have twins that are 9 years old and got into the industry when they were 3 months old, and I have a daughter that's 5 that started in the industry when she was 14 days old. So she kind of got grandfathered in because the boys already had an agent. And the way that we got into the industry was, I say, somewhat of luck and an act of God, because while I was pregnant with the twins, I was on bed rest. I was at the hospital, and the hospital psychologist came to talk to me because I was there for 9 days on bed rest. They gave me a bunch of information about twins, and one of the sheets was about getting Hollywood Loves Twins. Didn't think much of it. Then when they were 6 weeks old, we went to Babies R Us, and I was stopped by an agent there, and I was, oh no. And one other thing I forgot to say was I'm also a military family, so my husband is gone all the time. So, and I was like, no, we're a military family. We cannot afford anything. Like, this is not for me. And then when they were 2 months old at their christening at church, I got another agent that approached me at the christening. So I kind of thought, well, this one, let's kind of go this way. And that's how that happened. So.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear you guys' stories. Thanks so much for being with us today. All right, so before we start today's show, we're going to talk about a headline that it's kind of interesting. Since we're talking about talent agencies and twins, we automatically think of Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. So let's just get it out there. Let's just talk about them for a second because they're in the headlines right now. Simply because Mary-Kate, it appears that she has had some plastic surgery. I'm not sure if this is the first time she's had it. But what's interesting is she's really, really trying to make herself look different from her sister, and she's now referring to herself as a former twin, which I think is really weird. But I don't want to, I wanted to throw it out there to you ladies. Like, if your twins suddenly, started to look a little bit different and, and I understand why. They're constantly grouped together, right? But referring to themselves as a former twin just seems weird to me.
Yeah, I would agree. That is a weird statement because you can't be a formal twin. You were born the same day. You
My
were
kids
sisters
enjoy
and
being
stuff.
twins.
Yes,
Yeah.
but one thing to note about the Olsen twins is that most people thought that they are identical. They are not.
I just read
But you know
that.
what? Who knows if they haven't had a test? Because my girls, my doctors say they were fraternal, and I had them tested, and they're identical.
Did they have a test?
They have different eye color.
Wow.
Yeah, if you really look at a picture of them, they are fraternal. They are not identical, and they have different eye colors.
What do you think about the Olsen twins?
Well, first of all, they weigh like 90 pounds. They're tiny little things. So maybe her looking different means she gained 10 pounds.
Yeah.
The other one has lost 10 pounds. Who knows? I don't know. I think they're a special circumstance, those two. They've been in the limelight for so long that I don't think they have the same reality that we do.
And you see that with other people too. It's obviously not just the Olsen twins, but when you're kind of thrust into the spotlight, as you guys know, your children are treated differently. They're not treated as children. They're working children. There's different expectations. I'm sure they have to grow up faster. You hear about this.
I think
all the
it's
time.
harder friends-wise too. You have to be the person who's friends with my twins has to have enough self-confidence to be okay with them getting a little more attention.
Right.
So they've had problems with friends that are used to getting all the attention, and they can't be friends with them because they get more. It's too bad.
Right. Good points. All right, today we're talking about twins and talent agencies and what it's like to go out on auditions and get jobs. We basically want all the twin parents out there to know what is expected if you try to get your kids involved in the entertainment industry. So, why do you guys think the entertainment industry loves twins? What are some
They can
reasons?
work twice as much.
Okay, explain that a little bit.
There's labor laws. When your kid is, I forget what they are, but maybe set 0 until like 1 year old, they're only allowed to be on set 3 hours.
Actually, less than that. I think
Yeah.
they can only be on camera for 20 minutes.
That's
under.
newborns.
Oh, newborns, right,
Yeah.
right.
I think it's different, like newborn to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. There's different increments of how much you're allowed to be on camera. So with twins, legally, let's say one will work 3 hours on set, and then they'll go switch, and then the other one will go in. So realistically, they can work 6 whole hours as one person. No other kids can do that.
Right.
The really opportunity for twins is under 5 because after 5 years old, they're able to work more than 6 hours each. So that's where the competition comes in for the singletons that would come in for that. Before that, under 5 is where your key niche for twins is going to be.
So why did you guys decide to, I know we may have alluded this a little bit in the introductions and stuff, but why did you decide to get your twins involved with a talent agency as opposed to trying to do this on your own? Did you always think that if I do this, I have to have an agent?
I never thought of doing it on my own.
Never thought of it.
I never thought of doing it on my own either. And with that being said, though, it can be done on your
People
own.
self-submit all the time. I've never done that.
There's a lot of websites that you can go to and you can self-submit. But with that being said, being that we did start from the get-go and we, like Allison, we've had a lot of luck with our children and have been on very reputable shows with really good, HBO and Showtime and NBC and so forth. We've had an opportunity to see that. And it was interesting to see what the breakdown really was and how better we were treated when you had an agent than if you didn't, because your agent is kind of looking
out for you.
They're looking out for
your
you.
representative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, there was many jobs that I have been on where our kids were doing the exact same things. We had an agent, the other parent didn't. And, in conversation, out in the industry, you don't talk money, but the simple thing of like, a comment of, this isn't so bad for $300 a day, and I'm sitting there going,
What?
you're getting paid $300 a day? We're getting paid $800. Like, how is that?
And there are so many people out there willing to do it for nothing, just
Right.
to like be on TV. I'm like, no, I won't even go to those jobs unless they pay a certain amount.
So let's talk about that, because I know pay, like you said, it's kind of hush-hush a little bit. Can you talk in some general terms about what parents should expect when it comes to pay? And I know it varies on the opportunity, right?
Print is anywhere from $75 to $125 or $200 an hour.
Okay.
Those are just strict print jobs. SAG jobs, it is stringent.
It's usually by the day, and most of my experience so far, even with the boys, it was about $875 a day.
Okay.
And that's usually you're working your full 6 or 8 or whatever it is that you can do.
But then I'm trying to think when they were the soap opera, that wasn't SAG. Was that
Well,
AFTRA?
AFTR was different
AFTRA
than
was only
SAG.
$300 a day.
Right.
But they paid for both, so it was really $600.
Exactly. And that's where the twins benefit. So they may only be paying, hypothetically, $300, but each child is getting paid $300.
And
So it's a
sometimes
$600 day.
If they knew you were coming in from out of town like we were, they would film 2 episodes in one day and we would get both.
Okay.
So we would get $600 each for the day because they knew that we were there just for the day, and so they did back-to-back episodes.
Okay.
And also depends on what your classification is. So you could be an extra, or you can be a featured extra, meaning you're not just a background person, but a featured extra, which is what they usually use twins that are non-speaking. They call them featured extras. And that pay can be anywhere from $200 an hour to it just kind of depends on how long they need you. And obviously with the little babies, then, they know they're only going to get so much from them, and at some point they need a nap and they need to eat and they need that. But once again, that's when you kind of look at that, you need to kind of consider what the job and what it's entailed and what you're willing to give. Now, when you're first starting out and you're trying to get your name out there and stuff, you kind of have to take those lower paying jobs. And a lot of times they'll do an exchange, meaning for print, they may not pay you, but they will give you the pictures or do headshots for you. And that's where that kind of, you kind of have to know, what you're willing to do for your children. I know like Party City.
You learn a lot as you
Party
go
City
on.
doesn't pay very much, but it's such a fun job.
And we were saying Target too. Target hardly
Yeah.
pays anything,
Yeah,
but you get a
but-
lot of notoriety.
Right.
Right. A lot of exposure. At Disneyland, people think Disneyland is woohoo. Oh my
Legoland
gosh.
too.
They
you
don't
know?
pay nothing. But but with that being said, the kids have so much fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my kids. Yeah.
So
totally.
it's like, okay, well, and they're getting, it's all about, if you're really trying to get into this industry, it's all about your resume building. And it starts from day one.
So let's talk about finding a talent agency. I know you guys have different paths that you guys took to find the agencies that you guys are with. What advice do you have out there for parents who may be looking for an agent? Not everyone is located here in the San Diego area, so they may be all over the country. What advice do you have for them? What should they look out for?
I would definitely go on a referral. Just
Yeah.
don't cold call and find anyone out there. If they ask for money, they're not legitimate. They'll never ask you for money. An agent always gets a percentage of what they book for you, period.
Okay.
So if anyone asks, oh, you need to take headshot, you need to have professional photography, all that stuff costs. No, you don't. For the first 3 years of my kids' lives, I just took pictures and printed out their headshots on my printer at home.
If they're charging money, run the other way. This is, and I tell people that all the time, like, oh, this agency is calling, this, they want to do, they love my child.
And there's radio spots on TV or on.
Those radio spots that tell you, yes, who wants to be
Oh,
the
I
next
know.
Shake It Up,
And the
then
Disney
next
person
Bella
is here
Thornton,
picking-
whatever, and
They have some sort of seminar or whatever that you're supposed to go to.
They get you there, and then they want you to take classes, and they want you to take pictures, and they want you to use their photographers. Next thing you know, and I've heard crazy outrageous amount of fees of
ridiculous.
$1,200, $5,000. And as parents, we want to believe that our children are the next big
I know,
thing.
sure.
So they prey on that.
But it's
and-
really their own personality they're going for. I don't think an acting class can give you personality. And my kids are 12. They've never had an acting class.
Mine haven't
They get
either.
all their jobs basically because they're cute, they're outgoing, and they're mature.
True.
And they
But
can-
cute only gets you so far.
I tell them
More
that too.
personality as
Definitely.
well. Because what I will say about my kids is that they were never criers. They were never theft. They would go with strangers, and they had an outgoing personality. And I think that's what really set them apart.
Are there any startup costs? I know we talked about maybe companies taking advantage of parents, but genuinely speaking, are there any startup costs that you should be aware of if you've got younger children? Let's say they're not really old enough to really need headshots.
For me, there wasn't. We did everything ourselves.
No, and that's important to note that there is not. Yes, it is important to have good pictures because it's your first impression. It's
Yeah.
it's what you're presenting as your child. But when you're first submitting, what they're looking for is they want natural lighting, they want your natural hair color, they want natural stuff. Like we're told to go take a picture outside, and they're not looking for anything uber professional initially until you're signed on.
Okay.
But if they want to see what your child's natural element is. Right. And that's one thing to note, there's different ages that are going to get more jobs than others. So that your children, you have dry spells, and then you have spells that your kids are going to work
And
a lot.
like you said earlier, it's luck. It's a lot of luck, I really believe.
Yeah, right place at the right time
Yeah.
with the right look. And
My girls did a Toyota commercial and they wanted crawlers. And they were barely crawling, but they were. And so, I mean, we got lucky, but who's to say you're not going to bring your kid that day and they're not going to crawl?
Right. Yeah, that's the scary thing is you just don't know how kids are going to behave.
You
But
don't.
I'm going to save that because we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the audition process as well as what to expect if your twins are cast in a job opportunity. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Today we're talking about twins and talent agencies. So let's assume your twins now have an agent. They're with an agency. Now it's time to audition and hopefully get some job opportunities. So what can we kind of reveal about the audition process?
When your kids go in for the audition, they don't allow mommies. So we have no idea what they're doing in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like they call your name, your kid goes into a room and they close the door.
Well, at some point you have to. Like if you're talking about babies.
Maybe baby, not even.
Not even, no, because they want to see how the
that
baby.
you can separate.
that
from
there's
your,
no.
You can be on camera
What is
without
that?
your mom there. Separation anxiety.
Thank you. I was like,
Yeah.
Wow.
Because if a kid's going to cry the entire time the mom leaves the room, they can't book that kid.
Well, the mom could be on set. I mean, I see where you're going
But
with
then
it.
the kid will
they
always look in the direction of their mother.
That's true.
Yeah.
But the model, it's how they are with the model, how the actress or whoever, whatever they're expecting the baby.
And
to
that's
do.
another thing too that I try and tell people. Like you can have the cutest kid, the best like demeanor and mannerisms and all those things, but sometimes they're going to book the pretend parents first, so then they're going to obviously book the kids later who looks more like that person.
Right. So it may not just be just about how well your kids did. There's a
Right.
lot of other factors. that are-
Absolutely. A lot of times they're forming families.
So, do you ever find out about job opportunities where an audition isn't required, where they can just cast off photos?
Yes.
We've been cast it's at least 2 or 3 times that way. We did a Pentex catalog that way. We did a Best Buy, Sony spot, just a video submission. I took a video on my phone,
Okay.
sent it to the agent, and they sent it to the casting person. Yeah, those are nice. I wish
I
they'd
have to-
Skype
I-
auditions.
I have been saying that for a while,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Again, we talked about needing the babies to be separate from the parents. That's part of the reason. But I'm like, it would save so many parents so much time.
Yeah, but
if
then
they could
again, I'm
do
sure
that.
there's. Even think about like how like when a celebrity looks really nice in a picture, then you
Yeah.
see them in real life, you're like, no
Right.
way, that's not the same
Right.
person.
And that's the importance of
yeah,
having
they
really
want it.
good pictures. And once you really are enthralled and ready to dive into this industry and decide that this is what you want to do with your children, I think that's where you do need to invest in some really good pictures and actually have some really good photos, because once again, it's your first impression. So yeah, I mean, that is a possibility.
But it's not common.
But it's not right. It's not
And you
common.
have to be willing to go out on the auditions. I want to
Yes.
make it very clear to parents out there.
In multiple, because you go
Right.
for the audition, then you go
Right.
for a callback, and then you go for the job.
And
So
you're
that's
taking
3.
2 babies.
And sometimes there's a fitting.
My very first experience when initially we got into this, my twins were 3 months old. We drove up there, and on the way up there, they were screaming bloody murder. And of course, we're driving from San Diego to LA, and it was the most horrid experience I ever had, and I got lost. I couldn't find it, and then when we got there, I couldn't find parking, and then I had to take what I used to call the beast.
It's
back then.
stressful.
The double stroller. There's so many nice ones now that
you don't
are
even fit through
compact.
handicapped doorways.
No, but
They're
I had.
awful.
But so here I am pushing my little babies, and I'm just going. Well, I'm already here, so I'm going to do this. And after we were done, they were like, "Can you hold the baby? Can you do this?" And one screaming, and I look like a crazy woman trying to hold 2 babies while they're taking pictures. And ironically, they took a picture of me with the kids because I was the one holding them. And then when we left, I was like, "Oh, I'm never doing that again." But I'm glad that we tried it out. We ended up booking it, and on my way home, I was like, "There's no way I'm ever doing this again. This is crazy."
The funniest thing is when people are like, "Oh, can you do this with your kid? And can you do that with the kid?" And they're usually people that don't have kids themselves, and you're like, "This isn't possible." My kids booked a Toyota commercial, and it was at Griffith Park in the back seat of a Toyota Highlander. So it was already 106 degrees outside. Inside a car, it's even hotter. And they're like, "Why isn't she smiling? Why isn't she happy?" And I'm like, "She's sweating, and it's hot. Do you have children?" They're like, "No, but can't she just do this?" I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
"She's 9 months old." So what we did, and this was actually my ingenuity, I'm just like, what if you just did a close-up on the ground? You wouldn't know that she's not in the back seat of a trunk. And they're like, "Oh, okay." And they did. So the last scene was actually on one of our blankets outside.
And sometimes they do listen to the parent.
Yeah.
Well, go put it down for a nap. And you're like,
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
okay, good. I can put them down for a nap. It's nap time. And they'd be like, "Okay, yeah, go ahead." And they give you 45 minutes, and then they're calling them back up, and you're like, whoa. They don't go down that easy. And
Right.
oh, well, just wake them up. And it's like, well, is he going to be happy? I'm like, are you happy when they wake you up? Like, I don't know, but
Camera time, it's expensive to do all that stuff.
Time
so
is
they
money.
are on
Yeah.
a time
time is
restraint.
money.
Right.
And that's one
They
thing
don't
to
have
know.
the luxury of saying, "Oh yeah, go take a 2-hour nap."
No, they don't. And that's where you have to say, say, when people go, oh, how sad, I can't believe they did that to your child or to your baby. And it's like, you are not a normal baby. You are a working baby.
And
you
that's
are a
when
baby
they
that's
like
getting paid.
Yeah, and that's when they like twins even more too, because one is essentially a backup for the other.
Right.
So if like, let's say when my kids were on the soap opera and started to get fidgety and crying, they'd switch and then they bring in the other one, and that one would be happier. And they would do that all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So let's jump back just a little bit, because I want to talk about the actual process and what parents can expect when it comes to getting a casting, a
callback.
notice, a callback. But it starts with finding out about an audition, right? So how does that process work? What
You usually
role
get
does
an
your
email
agency
the day before.
The day before.
Yeah,
So you
so
have
like-
24 hours to prepare.
Yeah, so Monday I'll get an audition notice that I have an audition Tuesday at 3 o'clock.
And they already come up with the time for you.
Yeah, they give you a time, and sometimes you can request a time change, but they really like you to stick to that time.
Who's
'Cause,
they?
The agent, the casting people, because
Well, it's
they're
a
casting
casting.
people
The
like every
agent-
5
yeah,
minutes.
the agent just gets the notice and then the notice. So
They'll try to accommodate you, but for the most part, they want you to stick to the schedule.
And that's where I think a good relationship with your agent to say, look, now the kids are in school age, but before I was working part-time, before I was working full-time. And I would say I had very specific days. Like on these days, it doesn't matter. But on these days, I can't go anywhere past 5 or,
But
they
they also
have to push
accommodate
later.
kids. They accommodate
do.
the older kids. They'll put them at the latest time slot. You'll get
For
like
school.
a 5 to 6 time period.
Okay.
Whereas like a smaller kid will obviously get like 10 a.m. or something, because that would just
They're not
mess
at
up
school.
our kids' whole day. And for them, it doesn't matter. But
So
for
this
us,
is
it
my
does.
question. I'm not even sure if you guys can answer this, but do you have any idea why you don't have as much notice? Because I have a hard time believing that that they don't have the hall booked or wherever they're going to do the auditions. Sometimes I think they're just trying to weed out the serious parents from the parents that aren't as serious.
It's only ever been a
It's
day.
always been that way, and something that
Always.
has always bothered my husband, in the sense of these last minute running to LA and last minute trying to get it together and rearranging schedules. And even when they were younger, and he would say, I can't believe that our agent is so well known, and how can, we would get the call sometimes at 5 o'clock at night, and they want them there at 10 o'clock. Once again, we're talking about that's when they're younger. Right. And so, yeah, to be honest, I think it's a weeding out process. And I don't know that as a fact, but it's just kind of my good guess. But it has always been that way. And
Always.
if you can't
For
just
12 years I've been doing
if
this. It's
you
always
can't
been that way.
just go up to LA tomorrow, then this is not for you.
Explain the book out process.
You can let the agent know that you are not available from November 7th through November 22nd, so that you don't get.
But you have to also do it on 3
Yes,
websites.
you have to book out, because they do get upset, because sometimes an agent will submit hypothetically 50 children for one role, and they only get 2 callbacks, meaning they only want to see 2 of their children that they
One
represent.
of yours is you're saying no.
And you're saying no, I'm not
it
available.
looks poorly on the agent that they
Yes.
submitted a kid who can't go.
Yes.
So they get very upset with you.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So it's important to book out. Now, with that being said, you have your dry spells. So sometimes what happens to us is that we get out of sight, out of mind, and there's 2-3 auditions that come back to back, and we're in the groove, and then we don't hear for any job for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
So I forget to book out, and I don't forget to say we're not available these days, because it's feast or famine.
Yeah.
And
And there's been times I've been on vacation, like a last minute vacation, like Easter. Like my friend invited me to Arrowhead. So we went to Arrowhead for 4 days. While we're in Arrowhead, I get an audition notice for the next day. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. We're in Arrowhead. Why didn't you book out? I'm like, I didn't think of it. It was a weekend and it's a holiday. I mean, I'll obviously book out for vacations that I know I'm going on, but sometimes you go on a last minute vacation on a weekend. And then, you're going to have to deal with your agent getting upset with you.
And then if you also have other siblings, you Allison just has the twins, but like you mentioned, Sunny, you have 4.
Yeah.
I have 3. And sometimes either my daughter's getting the audition or the twins. Now the twins get
And sometimes they
10
don't want
times
you to
as
bring your
more.
siblings.
They don't want the sibling there. No.
They'll get mad at you if you left it for one kid and you bring 3. They're like, why are all these kids here?
Yeah.
But what are you supposed to do with your kids?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
What do
so-
you do? I mean,
So this
obviously
isn't an
family,
easy
friends,
job.
something.
Yeah.
No, you need to have a support system. You need to have somewhere that you're going to leave your child. Now, no, you're not leaving them for 2 hours. You're leaving them for 6, because you're driving up to LA and back. And you had talked about what the actual audition process was. Realistically, you go up there and they see your child for 5 minutes.
Yeah, after 5 or 6 hours of driving, you're there for
Or
2
even
minutes,
waiting.
not even 2 minutes.
And then they go in and
Stand on a mark, they say their name, and then they leave.
I mean, because we're not in there with them, it's hard to know what they ask. And I try to, pry out of my children. Well,
But
what
that's
did
a
they
good
make
thing
you
about
do?
having twins, because one starts talking and then the other one will go, oh, and this happened, and this happened. But if you ask them individually what happened, I don't remember. But what I wanted to say too, I think this is important when people are starting out and they have an audition and then they go home and they're like, when am I going to hear? When am I going to hear? When am I going to hear? And I'm just like, honestly, and from the beginning, and we still do this, when we go on audition, it leaves my head as soon as we leave there. I don't ever expect a call back. If I get like, if my phone rings and it says the agent's name, like, oh, good. But I'll never look and say, oh, that's filming
No
tomorrow.
news is bad news.
Yeah. So
They're never going to tell you didn't get it.
And the moms that are like new in this and are like, I really think my kid got this. They did so well. I'm like, you can't think that way. Honestly, when we went, I'm from Los Angeles. So when we went for auditions, I would make a day of it and I would just visit my friends from high school or my family. And that's what my kids look forward to is the play date after the audition, not the actual audition, because it only takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So you really should keep your expectations in check and not ever expect to get a call back and just be happy if you do.
One of the things that you want to make sure that you have when you do start up, you need a
Coogan.
Work permit is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And that costs you nothing. You need to replace them every 6 months. When they're under 14 days, it needs to be signed off by a doctor that says that they are healthy little babies. And I had to do that with my daughter. And then after kindergarten, first grade.
You have to prove their school records.
Yes, they want school records
student.
that they have good citizenship and that they have good attendance. I think attendance
if
is
they
the big
miss
one.
more than a certain amount of days, they're not going to sign it.
Yeah, the school can have a big, huge impact on whether your child works or not. So if you don't have good grades and good attendance and good citizenship, they will not sign off on that. So that costs you nothing other than time. You can submit online to do it, or you can go to the office here locally in San Diego or even LA. They can. It's a 2-3 day turnaround. And then the other thing that you must have is a Coogan account, which is a 15% block trust, right? It's court mandated that has to go that. And that has to go, I forgot the whole background story, but you hear these crazy stories about how Macaulay Culkin and
well, it's called Coogan because it was named after one of the kids from oh my god,
I know, I'm thinking
Little Rascals. Yeah,
the Little Rascals. Yeah, his
Jimmy
parents.
Coogan's parents took off with all his money, so now they call it a Coogan account, so it doesn't happen to other children.
Yeah.
For jobs, are parents usually allowed on set for jobs?
You must be on set.
It depends on how old your kid is. Yeah.
Well, a parent needs to be on set with each child. So if you have twins, realistically, you need to take a nanny with you. Now, there are nannies that you can hire. I know, beautiful, wonderful people that we've worked with for the last 9 years. And they're the ones that have made this opportunity. Now, you pay them, and you pay them well, because it's important that your child is good. And you cannot take siblings. They do not want looky-loos. They do not want starstruck people. You're there to work. You are a working child. You are not there to get autographs and take pictures. That's not the way. I mean, if you're going to get paid, they're treating you like a paid employee.
Mm-hmm. It's not one of those, easy, oh yeah, let's do this. It's a full-time job. Mm-hmm. If you have a full-time job, you can't do this realistically, unless maybe your company is, lenient and say,
really flexible.
Yeah, very flexible.
Yeah.
But you have to, a day's notice, you got to be there, and there goes your whole day. So and it does cost, gas. Every job or every audition is not going to be a job. You can audition, like I was saying, some people have auditioned for years and never gotten anything. Those people really should stop.
The statistic that I have heard is that you have to hear 7 no's before you hear 1 yes. And we're talking about like just one callback, not necessarily that you get the job.
All right. Well, ladies, we've talked about a lot. Thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing some insight on what it's like to be in the entertainment business with your twins. So our conversation continues for members of our Twin Talks Club. After the show, we'll discuss some tricks our parents have to make the audition process run as smoothly as possible. For more information about the Twin Talks Club, you can visit our website at newmommymedia.com. We have a question from one of our listeners for one of our experts, and this comes from Angelica of Boca Raton, Florida. Angelica writes, I am uncomfortable with something and feel powerless. My mother-in-law takes care of my 5-month-old boy-girl twins for the 3 days of the week that I work. We have started feeding them purees once per day. She calls any food that she gives them dessert, be it pumpkin, oatmeal cereal, pears. Everything gets the quote-unquote dessert tag. I'm of the opinion that dessert should not be made important or even relevant for them, so they don't want it. I eat super healthy at home, and at my in-laws, they think they do, but I've never seen a leafy vegetable on their table. What should I do? How to fight this one? I feel like she is paving the road for picky eating. I listened to your Parent Savers chapter on that. I plan on using baby-led weaning when they have teeth for them to follow my example, not others, and have pretty clear ideas on how to raise my twins. Should I put conditions to my MIL, mother-in-law? How to share my preferences with her without hurting her feelings? This is really important to me. Please help.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Jennifer Shear. I'm a psychologist, and I work with moms around perinatal issues and transition to motherhood. And Angelica, I love your question. I think it is, in fact, multi-layered. On the surface, it can look solely like a question about what's the best way to talk to kids about food and appropriate language choice. Certainly, the way we speak to them has impact on their long-term relationships with food, and I think that's really important to be conscious about it. However, I am wondering if some of the emotion behind your question has something to do with what I think all moms grapple with, and that is once the babies are out of the womb, we are somewhat dependent and reliant on other caregivers and other important people in our kids' lives. And the question is, how do we navigate our parental authority in light of all these influences? So that's something I always ask people to think about, to process the feelings around that, because it makes us so vulnerable. But in terms of talking to your mother-in-law, I strongly encourage you to speak with her. My recommendations about how to do so would be to just share with her your readings and your research and ask her, say, this is important to me. I'd like us to be on the same page and be consistent in how we speak to the kids. And so I strongly encourage you to, as warmly and directly, approach the conversation with her. I think the most important thing as a mom is to move away from feeling powerless to really feeling like you've got the ability to make the choices and the things happen for your kids that you want to. Okay? So good luck. Go have a good conversation. Okay, bye-bye.
That wraps up our show for today. We appreciate you listening to Twin Talks. Don't forget to check out our sister show, Preggy Pals, for expecting parents, our show, The Boob Group, for moms who breastfeed their babies, and Parent Savers, your parenting resource on the go. This is Twin Talks, Parenting Times 2.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
New Mommy Media is expanding our lineup of shows for new and expecting parents. If you have an idea for a new series, or if you're a business or organization interested in joining our network of shows through a co-branded podcast, visit newmommymedia.com. Hey mamas, don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.